Training at 40 is different, isn't it? So all of you guys around here, most of you guys are 40 plus and or 35 plus. And you guys say, hey man, I'm not 40 yet, but I'm feeling it. I'm like, me too, man. Trust me. When I hit 35, things started to shift. And you started to become aware of your own mortality. And you started to become aware of things maybe hurting a little bit more. And maybe your recovery was a little bit different. Maybe your testosterone felt a little bit different. Your sex drive, your motivation, all these things sort of shift a little bit. So how we approach our fitness, how we approach our training is important. Most of you guys know me as the fitness guy, the training guy, right? Most people come to me. We get the best people in the whole world that come to me learn how to exercise. But what I will say is exercise is only one piece of the puzzle. And if you don't learn to optimize all of the pieces of the puzzle, you simply can't progress, right? Your body is not just going to progress because you ask it to do more training. You have to be aware of the multiple steps in the process. So training, I want you to think of training as an external signal, right? It's an external signal, just like light is an external signal, sleep is an external signal, food is an external signal. That interacts with your body, right? So when I put training or food or any type of stimulus or signal into my body, it's interacting with the current state of my body to elicit an adaptation or response. So there's multiple steps in that process, isn't there? There's the training process, which we absolutely have to get right. And here's the reality: 98% of people in the world, including trainers, have no clue what they're doing. And that's not arrogant, that's just reality. And anyone who's gone through my mentorship or any of my courses know how different what we teach is. And I don't teach what I deem as my method. I simply teach what's correct. I know that sounds arrogant, but like the body moves how the body moves, right? And biomechanics is biomechanics. If you don't understand how the body moves, you need to. So we're going to go through a little bit of that, but super, super small amounts. But I want you guys to start understanding the simple reality of, hey, it's not just the exercise stimulus, right? It's learning to curate the internal environment, therefore the adaptation. And most of us, as we age, certainly in a stressful world, we stop paying attention to those things, right? So I believe there's 5 things that guys want, right? Over 40, or maybe 5 symptoms we're having, and then 5 things that we're going to do to fix it. Somebody's unmuted there. Okay. So the first problem you guys are experiencing, if you're over 40 and like most of us, maybe fat gain seems to be coming on a little bit faster now, right? Maybe you're not suffering with fat gain, but maybe you're like, man, you know what? I'm getting some extra fat, AKA losing muscle mass, right? So if we're adding fat, it typically means we're also losing muscle mass, because muscle mass is typically our metabolic machinery. So we want to pay attention to that. The other one a lot of us are experiencing, losing our sex drive. Anybody experiencing a little loss in the drive or maybe the performance? Okay, so most of us associate that with decreased testosterone. But do you guys know that testosterone is a 17-step process? It's not just like, hey, testosterone gets produced. It's not just a deficiency like, hey, I want to jam some more testosterone in my body. There's a number of very important prerequisites that need to happen for testosterone to actually be produced in your body and for your body to thrive and flourish like it did in your 20s, right? So one of my kind of taglines is 25 for life, right? We want to have the physical ability, the mental ability, the sexual stamina like we did when we're 25. How do we maintain that? I'll talk a little bit about that today. Some of us are also losing drive and motivation. What does that come from? Anyone attest? Anyone say yes, I'm losing a little bit of drive? If you guys resonate with any of these things I'm saying, I want you to comment in the box. I just want to hear you say yes in the box, or you can just give me a hands up, say yes, because I just want to see approximately why you guys are here. So if you want to take a moment right now, you guys can all go find the chat box and say, hey, this is why I'm here. So is it, there's a huge list of slides that we've got that I'll show you guys today. So are you getting fat and maybe losing muscle? Is your sex drive waiting a little bit? Are you losing motivation and drive? Are you lacking energy? Is it taking longer to recover? Are you having more soreness? Anyone experiencing any of those? So those seem to be the 5 biggest complaints from our coaching clients all over the world. You guys resonate with that? Add a little my mint tea as we allow a few more stragglers to get in here. So then we ask, how do we get there, right? So how do we experience those 5 big setbacks? So let me know if any of these sound familiar. Mindless eating, too busy, skipping workouts, sitting too much, creating bad habits, being overstimulated, maybe drinking too much alcohol or any alcohol, and being disconnected from nature. So those 9 things that I think are the keys to what's happening in why we're seeing this slow demise in men. Men, obviously, I hope you guys acknowledge, there's been a steady decline in masculinity in the last 30 to 40 years, hasn't there? It's built into our culture that men are supposed to be less masculine. And I, for one, don't want to buy into that dialogue, right? For me, I think men can be healthy masculine, which means I don't have to be extraordinarily aggressive. I don't have to be angry like maybe has been pictured in the historical masculine energy. It's just like confidence and certainty and direction. And maybe it's strength, right? Confidence. So that's what I see when I think of men. And that's what I hope to help you guys all deliver here today. So as I say, we will get into training a little bit because I think that maybe your greatest, well, for some of you, that will be your greatest lever. So the way I want you guys to think about this stuff is as you're going through, we have levers. So improving your sleep. Anyone needs to improve their sleep a little bit? That's a lever. Nutrition, lever. Cardiovascular fitness, lever. Supplementation, lever. Training, lever, right? And even getting in nature is a lever. Think of all these as different levers you can pull at different times throughout your day or throughout your week or your month or even your program to allow your body to progress. So I don't want to pull them all at the same time necessarily. I can, but I want to be aware of what are all of those levers that I can start to pull that allow my body and my expression of my body to change. So when I say expression, what I'm saying is if I train every day, that training doesn't get expressed automatically, right? I have to have that training that matches with nutrition, that matches with recovery, then ultimately adapts into the way my body looks. So acknowledging that the way my body looks on the outside is a reflection of what's happening on the inside. Everybody with me so far? Okay. So there's a few keys that I think are missed. So I'm not going to waste any time today. I'm going to jump right into what I call my foundational phase. So when you guys join any of my programs or my coachings, which you guys will get an opportunity to inquire about today, when you join the coaching, the first thing everyone goes through is a foundational phase. So I'm just going to share that with you guys today. There's a very small number of things that when we prioritize these things in the beginning, results become exponentially greater, right? So what are those things? I'm explaining to you how this works. So if you're currently subjecting your body or your mind or your life to some type of stress, stress is like digging a hole. You guys have maybe heard this analogy before. I'm walking around with a shovel and I'm digging a hole. Every time I become stressed in any way, and that could be movement, and that could be psychological stress, and that could be relational stress, chemical stress, any of those things are creating stresses. So every time we do it, we're digging a hole. And if we don't become intentional about filling those holes back in, eventually we're walking around in a minefield, right? And we're falling all over ourselves. So phase 1, the foundational phase of exercise, is about filling in all of those holes, right? We want to fill in the gaps so that we give ourselves a solid foundation from which to move forward. So most people, when they get into training, they're like, hey, you know what? I'm simply going to go in the gym and work harder. What are you doing? You're adding more stress. Hey, I'm going to eat less calories. What are you doing? You're adding more stress. Calories are your biggest lever to actually alleviate stress. But if you drop calories, you're actually increasing stress, right? So this is something we don't want to be doing right off the beginning. Otherwise, we're literally putting our body into a deeper state of stress. So understanding how the stress systems work in the body is really important, and learning that you can actually control these things, right? You're not a product of reacting to your life. Right? We want to learn how to be intentional and create our life, right? So when something stressful happens, it doesn't necessarily have to be viewed as such, or I don't have to have that big stressful response in my body. I can actually control that. If you guys have heard me talk about this stuff before on the podcast, there's always this conversation around arousal states, right? What's a state of arousal? Well, when I'm training, I want to be able to be a warrior and a monk, right? When I'm training, I'm a warrior. When I'm at home, I'm a monk. And now I'm more resilient to stress, right? Think about resilience. Stress happens. All of us respond differently to the same stress, right? That's to do with the resilience of our nervous system. We want to train that because our body then becomes more adaptive. It responds faster to anything we subject it to. So you guys have you ever heard or how I define health? So as we age, most of us are experiencing deteriorating health. What does that mean, deteriorating health? Well, we're moving closer to disease. That's true. But in my eyes, health is simply the ability to adapt to imposed demand, right? So if you guys think about when you're in your teenage years, in your 20s, your ability to adapt was so fast. You train, next day you're good. You go out for a late night, the next day you're good, right? You could run and you could run and you could run. Your body's still got to recover. That to me is the definition of health in this context: is how quickly do I adapt to imposed demand, right? And as we age, what happens to the ability to adapt to imposed demand, right? That's an indication of waning health. So we have to be aware of what can I do to make my body adapt more robustly, more effectively. So there's a bunch of boxes we can check to make sure our body is responding to these stresses we're subjecting to and getting the adaptation, right? How many of you guys train more than 3 times a week, 4 times a week, 5 times a week? Most of you guys. Guess what? Most people that I see in the gym, probably on the order of 90 and 95%, you guys will all get this too. You've seen the same people for the last 5 years, and how much have they changed? They look exactly the same, don't they? Everyone looks exactly the same as they did 5 years ago. I walked into a gym I haven't been in 5 years, and I see these people who still train it look exactly the same. I'm like, man, nobody makes progress. Why don't people make progress? Because they don't understand how to train, and they don't understand how to control the adaptation process. So I want you guys to start splitting those two things in two. Training signal and stimulus needs to happen effectively. And then to respond to that, I need to make sure the adaptation is in place. And for some of us, that's the challenging part, but not because it's hard, but because we simply don't understand it yet, right? We don't understand what actually goes into like making my body adapt more effectively. Well, if you can adapt more effectively to a fight with your spouse, you can then also adapt more effectively to your workout, right? It's the ability to adapt to stress. Stress is a universal thing. The type of stress can be different, but your body's health and resilience to these stresses is the same across the board. Okay, so there's a couple things that we're going to walk through. I'm going to walk you guys through some slides, but there's really 5 things that I want to focus on for today that we want to optimize. Okay, so we're going to optimize training. This is really important. The signal that we're subjecting our body to. And then we want to optimize protein synthesis. Do you guys know as you age, your ability to synthesize protein actually goes down? Everybody know that? So you actually have a greater requirement for protein as you age. Here's the catch-22. I need more protein to recover as I age. Here's the problem. My body actually breaks down less protein as I age. Why? Because my body produces less enzymes and acid to break down protein. So how do I fix that? Right? Well, it's the reason my body starts creating less acid and enzymes as I age is because we're overstressed. We're overstimulated. We're always in the state of high alert. We're always the warrior and never the monk, right? So we want to be aware of how often are we consciously bringing ourselves out of that state of high alert. Do any of you guys have some practice that simply brings you out of your head? You guys acknowledge that most of us live in our head every day? Do you know that the human consciousness can exist in 2 places at once? So most people say, you don't think do one thing at a time. Actually, you can do 2. So you can exist in 2 places at once. And most people exist in the future. They're thinking about what they have to do later today or tomorrow or what they're going to do in a month, and living in the past. They're thinking of what they didn't do and they're stressed about it. And like, oh man, I forgot to do this. Living in the future and the past. What we want to do is we want to take you out of the future and the past and live in the present. We want to live in the here and the now. And that happens by paying attention to our external surroundings. So we have one center of locus of attention outside of our body and one inside of our body. So what does that mean? What does that look like? So why don't we all just take a moment, take a deep, slow breath in, let it out slowly. Most of you are sitting, some of you are standing. If you're sitting, I want you to pay attention to the way your butt feels against the seat. Maybe your forearms, your hands feel against the chair or the cushion. I just want you to bring your attention to that. And now think of it almost like a cloud of sensation. Maybe your feet against the floor, your back against the cushion. Start just bringing your attention, your awareness there. So keep your attention and your awareness there and bring it also into your breathing. So maybe you feel your diaphragm expanding. Feel it constricting. So what we just did there in 5 seconds is we brought your attention out of the future, out of the past, into the present. Why is that useful? Well, one, it's going to get you to stop stressing about the future and the past. And two, it's going to create what's called interoception, the ability to pay attention to the inside of my body. Why is that useful? When you're training, guys, what are you paying attention to? What are you paying attention to? Serious question. What are most people paying attention to? Answer, the weight in their hand. Guess what? That's stupid or ineffective, right? So when we're paying attention to the weight in our hand, our body is moving away from point A to point B. And there's a whole bunch of things that can happen in the middle there that move that weight. It could be a muscle you don't want. It could be momentum. It could be, many things that could ultimately move this weight. Our attention comes inside of our body. What do? We realize that this muscle, any muscle, has two ends. I want you to think of an elastic band, right? So if I have an elastic band and I'm pulling on this elastic band, one end pulls away, the other one pulls closer, right? So this end is stabilized. One end is should be always stabilized. This is an important lesson in teaching in movement. And this end moves away and this end moves closer, right? So I'm thinking about what's happening inside of my body, inside of the muscles, rather than what's happening outside in the exercise, in whatever's in my hand, right? So there's one simple tip for you to start getting more effective at creating a better signal. If you don't create the signal for muscle growth, you don't adapt. You can't adapt, right? So start thinking about, how can I create a greater amount of signal, less noise? What does that mean? Most guys go in the gym and they're focused on I just want to work hard, man. I just want to get in there and crush it. So what do? You're creating low signal, high noise, huge amounts of inflammation and stress, very low muscular signal. Maybe you burn some calories. That's great. But you're not ultimately doing what you went in there to do. And that's add muscle. Why do we want to add muscle rather than just burn calories? Does anyone here actually just train to burn calories? There's nothing inherently wrong with that. But what I would suggest to you is the goal should not be to use training to burn calories. The goal should be to use training to build muscle. Why do we want to build muscle? Because muscle is a really important piece of the metabolic machinery in our body. It produces hormones, it produces inflammatory cytokines, it produces or it burns calories consistently over time, right? Muscle is the organ of longevity. The more muscle you have, the more healthy and robust your body is. Yeah, it's important. So people don't acknowledge muscle. Most people think muscle is just for moving. Muscle is actually what is a secretory organ, meaning it releases hormones and cytokines that influence other tissues all around the body that allow it to grow and adapt and get better and stronger. So when we're training, it's not just about, hey, I want to go in there and burn calories, grit my teeth and work hard, right? That's not the goal. That's from this demographic, you guys will get it. That's the 80s, right? That's the 70s and 80s. Like, that's not the way we should be training. It's not effective. So here's the interesting thing about you guys. You're like, oh, but those guys look so great in the 80s. Here's the difference. So if you think of the number of people in the gym in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, it's very small relative to now, right? So the people back then who did whatever they wanted, they just trained and they got the best results, were the ones who, because nobody knew how to train, nobody had any clue. So whoever had the best body, we assume they knew how to train the most effectively, right? Like Arnold's a good example. So we say Arnold had the best body, therefore I'm going to train how Arnold trained, right? That wasn't good logic. Well, guess what? You're not Arnold, neither am I. You don't have his genetics, neither do I, right? So his ability to build muscle from mindless training was really effective. He didn't train terribly, but it wasn't certainly effective. It was like minimally effective. And he built a bunch of muscle. Could he have built more muscle? So much more muscle with less effort. And that's kind of what we're getting to, right? How do we get to this point where we can build more muscle, less effort? So when we're thinking about this, guys, I just want you to start shifting your focus from an external focus to an internal focus. Step one. Now we're going to start thinking of new additional ways to stack on top of your training. So how many of you guys over 40 start to feel tight? A little more creaky. Yeah. Sometimes you have a little bit of psychological restriction, don't you? You're like, I kind of hurt a little bit. Don't want to do this. I'm not sure I get my hand above my head today. Okay, so what's that a result of, right? That's a result of, one, elevated inflammation in the body systemically, which is not a movement thing at all. Well, it actually is, but so separate that, because that oftentimes for most people is an excess of stress and poor diet. Your body becomes very creaky. What else? What else causes us to be super creaky? Well, the fact that we typically, how many of you guys are guilty of going to the gym and doing the same exercise over and over again because you're good at it? You do the same shit over and over again, right? So it's the use it or lose it scenario. If I use it, great. If I don't use it, it goes away. So as you guys continue to do the same exercises over and over and over again, what happens to all those other ranges of motion that you should be able to access? The walls are closing in around you guys. So we have to be conscious of, how do I move my body in a way that allows me to maintain mobility and strength? So here's how we think about this. We think of this as a dynamic balance between rigidity and fluidity, right? So rigidity is what's necessary to move weights. I need to be rigid. I need to be strong. I need to have a rigid spine. I need to be very, very rigid. And the more rigid I am, the more I can move weight, right? That's stability. It's rigidity and stability. Now, the other end of that is fluidity or mobility, right? So I need to be able to move. So I don't want my spine to just be super rigid, because if I can't move up my spine, my body finds other places to pick it up, right? So if I'm really tight here, my body goes, I need more range. I'm going to find it at my shoulder. And all of a sudden, my shoulder starts to hurt, right? So it's important that you guys balance in some type of awareness. I need to create rigidity and fluidity. So here's a simple practice for you guys to implement into your training right now. In all of your warm-up sets, I want you to increase the range of motion as much as you reasonably can in the stretched position. So I want you to be conscious of spending a little extra time on the stretch, and only in warm-ups, right? So when you're warming up, what we're trying to do is tell the brain, like, hey, with this minimal amount of weight, I'm going to go into these really lengthened muscular positions, right? Spend some time there. So as you're warming up, you're really conscious of, like, I'm going to spend 2-3 breaths at the lengthened position on every single rep as I warm up. I'm going to try to create space. Now, it's not stretching per se, because it's still loaded, right? It's still have a little bit of resistance. So it's kind of this, like, you're almost like it's like loaded stretching, I guess. So you're moving into the stretch position with still a little bit of resistance pulling. So you don't want to completely be flaccid, but you want to be thinking about, can I increase the range a little bit? So what happens when we get lazy or mindless when we train to the range of motion? Everyone's guilty of it. What happens? Range of motion inevitably gets smaller, doesn't it? Why? Because we're strong in a certain range. And our brain goes, hey man, I can lift more weight if I stay in this range. My goal is to lift more weight. Anybody have an attachment to how much weight you lift? Ego lifters, don't deny it. You know it's true. We all do it. So the more you can pay attention to leaving that stuff out and just being like, my goal is to actually have my body work more effectively. So spending time in exaggerated lengthened positions with minimal weight is a really important foundation to get you guys starting to learn how to control the end ranges. So one of the main principles I teach in exercise is control of the end ranges, right? That's a lengthened position, that's a shortened position, right? If you don't control the end positions, you do not build strength over large ranges of motion. So if we get stronger at the lengthened and the shortened position, the mid-range by deductive reasoning gets better, because you have a greater amount of stability, right? And stability governs contraction. You guys know that? There's a soundbite for you. Stability governs contraction. So the more I can be intentional about scaling internal stability, the more I can scale contraction. And when I scale contraction, what happens? I get stronger, I add muscle, if I'm doing it correctly, right? So think about that. So there's some really simple nuance there that I want you guys to think about on how to approach the gym every day. So let's walk you back one step and say, okay, tomorrow we're walking to the gym, or later today we're walking to the gym. What do we do? What do we do? So this applies for any human. It doesn't mean just guys over 40, but guys over 40 tend to be guilty of not being able to do this. Arousal control, right? Do I want to be the same person in the gym that I am at home snuggling my baby girl? Or do I want to be the same person in the gym that I am in a business meeting? No. I want to control my states of arousal, right? So how do I do that? I want to be able to access the warrior. I want to be able to access the monk, right? And I should be able to do those in a single breath. True healthy nervous system can adapt to a high amount of arousal in one breath. low amount of arousal in a single breath. So when you guys get into the gym, I want you to start taking inventory of your state of arousal. You guys go to the gym, it takes a little longer to warm up after you're 40, doesn't it? And it takes so much longer to get going. Your body feels tight. You're like, God, I don't, maybe I need an extra pre-workout. I need an extra coffee. Is that stuff helping? Maybe, but it's often decreasing the size of the blood vessels. So decreasing your ability to pump, decreasing your ability to get nutrients there. Yeah. So when we're training, we want to think of like, yes, okay, we want to be able to control our pumps, but we want to be able to control our state of arousal. If I'm getting under a 400 or 500-pound squat, I shouldn't have the same state of arousal that I did under a 90-pound squat, should I? I consciously have to be able to go up. And obviously, the more I can control that during a set and access it, the harder I can push. And as soon as I'm out of that set, do I want to stay there? Do I want to stay at the high amount of arousal? No, I want to get out as quickly as I can, right? I don't want to stay in a high amount of arousal for the entire workout because then I'm going to burn out, right? As soon as I'm done a set, I want to, right? I want to get out of that, right? So literally for me, before I even get out of a machine, I'll be out of that high arousal state. So when I get into the machine, it's boom, right? Fast inhale breath and explode. And then as soon as I get out, as soon as the weight goes down, I don't even get out of the machine without controlling my arousal state. Why? The next set I go back in, guess what I can do? Exponentially more work because I didn't stay at that high arousal state. Staying at the high arousal state is actually literally promoting more caloric expenditure, promoting more cortisol, promoting more fatigue. We want to get out of that. So one of the most important things you guys can do as men for the rest of your life, intentionally train your arousal states. And I know sometimes in this demographic of people, meditation is like a cuss word, but because like, I can't do that. The reality is you just did, right? When we brought your attention into your body right now, that's a meditative experience. That's a mindfulness experience, right? So you guys can learn to do that. Training, my friends, is a meditative experience when done correctly. Why? Because I'm just bringing my attention into the inside of my body and forgetting everything that's going on around me. It's all noise. This is where I'm focused, right? If I can learn to focus on what's going on inside my body, what can I do to my training? I can make it a heck of a lot more effective. Heck of a lot more effective, right? So if I can learn to just focus on the muscle, just focus on creating tension inside my body, rather than thinking about my neighbor and my spouse and my children and my business, I can just go, and all of a sudden my results are faster. Right? Now, so I don't have to do 2 hours of workouts a day. I can do 40 minutes a day and actually get huge results. It's learning to be more effective and more efficient in your approach. Right? So this is one single thing. Most guys lose testosterone as they age, not because testosterone naturally declines with age. It's because we're getting fat, because we're moving less and we're eating too much. Right? So if we're not moving properly, like training needs to be your everyday anchor, at least 4 days a week. And I'm going to give you a framework today on how maybe to approach training to fit it all into your schedule. Because I get it, we're all busy, man. I get it, we're all busy. I don't ask you guys to train 2 hours a day. I say, hey, let's do 45 to 60 minutes every day. If we can do that every day, we can be really fit and effective. Okay, so here's a simple framework I want you guys to take away from today. I think this is what I do. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying it's very effective. So I literally will train every other day. So I'll train Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, basically repeating. And then on Tuesday, so on those Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sundays, those every other day workouts, how you split it is up to you. I can tell you my split if you guys want, and I have a very specific reason why I do this split this way. So I tend to train every body part twice a week. I try to do it twice a week. So my split tends to be, sometimes I just do upper and lower. I train full upper and full lower. I know that sounds a little bit simple, but it can be effective. So this is what I typically will do. I'll do back, rear delts, triceps, and hamstrings. So like posterior. Right? So I think those things all work really, really well together. And there's another reason why I don't just do all upper body and all lower body. It's because hamstrings and back are non-competitive body parts, right? So if I'm doing chest and delts and triceps and arms, there's a lot of stress going to my upper body. They're competitive with each other. Like if one is fatigued, it actually takes away from the other's ability to do work, right? Whereas hamstrings and back are relatively non-competitive. Does that make sense?
Back and triceps are relatively non-competitive. Does that make sense? So if I did back and then biceps, my ability to train back is going to be diminished. Or sorry, my ability to train biceps will be, whatever one comes second will be diminished. So I'm looking for 3 non-competitive body parts. So for me, it's going to be back, which is traps, lats, rhomboids, rear delts, triceps, and hamstrings and glutes. So that'll be like typical one day. And the next day, it'll be the opposite. It'll be chest, delts, biceps, quads, maybe calves. And I do abs every day. This is actually something I should tell all of you guys. Do you know that human movement starts from the spine and moves out? All human movement starts from the spine and moves out. So if our spine is not moving correctly, if it's rigid, or if it's simply not able to access certain ranges, or maybe our postural alignment is off, then all of the movement that stacks on top of that is inefficient, so or incorrect or dysfunctional. So I have a belief that every single one of us, every one of you on this call, should be doing something to train your abdominals, not just your abdominals, but your entire core every single day. So if you guys don't understand some really basic ways to approach this, you want to train in flexion and extension. So flexion extension is what you would typically see like a curl, but I also want to do the opposite direction, right? So I don't just want to train flexion, which is like a ab curl or ab crunch. I also want to do the opposite direction, which is like a reverse hyperextension. So that's one plane of movement, right? I'm doing this. Now, there's other planes of movement. There's also rotation. So I want to be able to train and access rotation. How many of you guys train intentionally rotation in any way, right? Intentionally accessing rotation is essential to long-term health of the shoulders, of the spine, of the hips, right? So training rotation. The other one is side bend, right? So it's simple side bend. And so I should say there's a lot of nuance when you're doing these things, but at least going through these ranges. So you see a lot of people doing these kinds of stretches, right? We're kind of leaning over the side. That's simple, but adequate, right? We're just taking our spine into a range that we don't normally do. This is why I've taken a liking to yoga. Anyone ever done yoga? Sounds a little non-masculine, but I'll tell you what, it's the greatest thing you can do to turn off the alarm bells in your brain when you're training. Because if they're going to tell you to get in these incredibly uncomfortable positions that you're weak as shit in, and they say stay there for 5 breaths, slow breaths, so the equivalent of probably 30 seconds, maybe longer. And guess what? You're going to suffer. And then you're going to go, the only way to get through it is to learn to control your state of arousal. So coming back to it, here's my split. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, just kind of repeating through like that is weight training, strength and muscle building. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday is going to be, for me, it's yoga and cardio. So mobility and cardio, right? So mobility and aerobic training. I pair those two together. I think they pair very well together. I tend to do the aerobic training first, and then I'll do the yoga or mobility work after. It tends to loosen me up, tends to make me feel a little bit better. I really am focused on everything I do. Bring this conscious awareness into your mind. Everything you do should be just aware of making the range of motion a little bit bigger. So if you're walking, every one of us walks. I want you to start paying attention. When you start paying attention to how your feet hit the floor, and then how long is your stride? And do you feel any stretch when you stride? Are you lengthening that back hip? Are you lengthening that back hip? Are you swinging your arms and allowing your spine to rotate? Just become conscious of how you do things. This in and of itself will change your life. Learn to become conscious in the moment of the things you're doing will make every other aspect of your life better. Why? If I'm in a conversation with my partner, if I'm working out at the gym, if I'm in a business relationship, if I can be present in the moment, thinking about what's right in front of me only, and all the other distractions is gone, what happened? I'm more effective, right? I'm more effective. I'm in that moment. I can deliver better solutions, right? Rather than just kind of always being mindless and falling into a state of habit. Do you guys know that after 35, 95% of what we do every day, 95% is unconscious habit? You guys know that? Unconscious habit. Now, that's not for everybody. So if you teach yourself to become more intentional, more conscious, you can shift all of that. You can become conscious and intentional about everything. Now, so in order to change, this is an important quote for you guys, or important awareness. Give me your attention for a second. What is the root of all change? There's one thing that's the root of all change. Awareness. I have to become aware of it before I can change, right? So what does awareness require? Presence, consciousness, mindfulness, being aware in this moment. So all of you guys are sitting in a chair right now. Are you aware of how you're sitting? Are you aware of how you're breathing? Are you aware of how much tension is going through your body right now? Take your awareness right now. I want you to go to those three things. How you're sitting, how you're breathing, how much muscle tone is in your entire body. So scan your body, scan your face, scan your neck, scan your hands, scan your arms. So think about like this. When my alarm bells are going off, when I'm in a state of high arousal, I'm constricted, right? Degrees, but somewhat constricted. Well, what happens when muscles are constricted? Inside the muscle, there's capillaries. There's a network of vasculature. It's constricted. So what happens to all the vasculature? It's being squeezed. So what happens to the requirement of your heart? Heart has to work harder to pump blood through there, right? Blood pressure goes up, heart rate increases. Just because I've got a little bit of extra tone in my muscles. Or how about if I just go, like let's say when we fall asleep or when we meditate or when we, I don't know, just relax. Muscles relax. Vascular system can expand. It dilates. What happens to blood pressure? Goes down. Blood flows better, right? It's not saying that you always want to be relaxed, but you certainly don't always want to be constricted. And I guarantee every one of you guys is sitting there like this, constricted or like somewhere in your body's constricted. So start going through your body on a day-to-day basis, 5 minutes, scanning and going. So I do this before every meal. It's a good anchor for you guys. Scanning my body, I'm saying, where am I holding tension? And I'm going to release it. So starting with my face, my neck, my shoulders, my hands, my arms, my hips, my spine. I just want to feel like I'm floating. And what you guys will notice, there's degrees. So you may start here, and then the first relaxation is here. And eventually it goes. If you're consistent with it, like anything, you can change quickly, very quickly. And guess what? Anybody have high blood pressure? It goes away, right? Anybody realize that do you know what the number one culprit for lost testosterone is? Anyone know? Stress. Stress and sleep. Stress is usually the biggest culprit of lost sleep, and those two together lead to lost testosterone. And obviously you got fat gain on top of that, but usually stress and sleep are the reason people are getting fat. So, all right. So I don't want to spend too much time on training. I want to come back to some of the other things that we're talking about in the beginning, the process of adaptation, because I think it's an important thing for you guys to start being aware of, especially as we age. So we talk about the process of adaptation. I want to optimize energy. Anyone ever have like ups and downs in energy? Man, sometimes I just don't have the energy to get off the couch, or sometimes I don't have the energy to go to the gym. Yeah. Why? So energy is a result of the autonomic nervous system, right? So what's happening, you guys have to understand this, but here's what's happening. If you're constantly in a state of high alert, like we just talked about, tense, your adrenal glands are constantly spitting out cortisol to fuel activity. They're just constantly trying to keep you on high alert. There's always something to do. It's like there's a line in the corner. My heart's going a little bit faster, and muscle tension is a little bit higher. The body's just burning through more energy, right? And that's at rest. So now when it comes time to do something that I actually want to do or want to enjoy, what happens to my energy? My body doesn't have the energy stores, doesn't have the cortisol to be able to go release. Cortisol is our friend. Cortisol gets released when we want to mobilize for movement or energy, right? So cortisol is our friend. If it's constantly elevated, by the time you actually need it, you got nothing left. Right? It's like you're always revving the engine on red, and then when it comes down to push it again, there's nothing else to go. So we want to think about how can I get myself out of that state of high alert? So when I'm relaxed, I'm actually relaxed. So that means I'm not on my phone. That means maybe I'm, I don't know, not always watching TV. Maybe I'm just literally disconnected. One of my favorite, actually, one of the most impactful things that I do is connecting with nature. That sounds weird, right? It sounds like a little hippie. But listen, think of what we've evolved to do. In the summertime, how much time would we have spent in the sun? Our ancestors, right? Ancestors. So let's say like a couple thousand years ago. If there was a winter time, no problem. They're covered up. They're inside. Summertime, as soon as that first sun comes, what are they doing? Clothes off, outside. Sun, right? Sun is the root of the human species, right? It's the foundation of everything we do. We're so disconnected from nature that our bodies lack energy. Our body lacks the ability to heal. The sun heals us, right? Anyone ever hear about like vitamin D? Right? Where does vitamin D come from? Vitamin D is one of the most impactful hormones in the body. So if you guys don't really have a daily nature practice, I don't care if it's 10 minutes in the morning going outside and staring at the sun, create that practice, not through your sunglasses, not through your car window. Simply go outside and look at the sun. Ideally, move. Did you know? Here's an interesting thing. Any of you guys lack motivation? Sometimes. Do you know what motivation comes from, or the lack of motivation comes from? Lack of forward progress. And literally, that can mean literal forward progress, right? So when we're walking outside, what does our brain perceive when we're walking outside? Things going past us. It's called forward ambulation. We're seeing things in our periphery moving past us, right? Forward ambulation. Things are moving past us. Our brain goes, oh, I'm moving towards something. I have dopamine. I'm pursuing something. Dopamine is the molecule of pursuit. If I'm pursuing something, I have energy. I have motivation. If I'm sitting on my ass, I have none of that. This is the problem. Our habit has become we sit on our butt. We're inactive, right? That's a big problem. So start creating a daily walk. You guys have heard me talk about breathe, walk, meditate as the three foundations. We can't do those three things. Everything on top of that will never be as successful, right? And why do we breathe, walk, and meditate? One, we breathe so we can control our arousal state. We meditate so we can become more aware in the moment. And we walk so we can have motivation and drive and cardiovascular health as a side benefit. Okay, so what I said in the beginning of this webinar, I'm not going to take too much more time, guys. Instead of beginning of the webinar, I'm going to teach you the five to six things we do in the first phase, the foundational phase of my transformation program. I'm going to teach you all this stuff really quickly, go through it all. These are the things that you must be doing before you can progress. So if you want to lose body fat, if you want to build muscle, if you want to improve your stress, these are all the things that need to be there to fill the holes so that your body can then start training harder. The worst thing you can do, guys, is leave this call today and go out and try to train harder and take this information that I'm giving and say, the only lever I have is training harder. If that's what you got, you're screwed. You'll be one of these guys 5 years from now, you come back and be on the same call, be like, man, I didn't make any progress. Does anybody want that? No. Right? I don't want that. Like, I want to make tremendous progress. I want to be like, I always say I'm fine wine, right? Like getting better with age. How can we ensure we're getting better every single day? What are the boxes we can check every day? So I've given you this big dump of information. What good is it, right? Okay, let's do this. What are the things that you can do every single day that'll make you a more effective human? Does that sound like an appealing thing to talk about? What are the things we can do every day? What are the things I just listed? Move your body for 60 minutes every day. Minimum. If you can't make time for that and you're overstressed, I'll tell you what, that one of the things I said in the beginning, people are overstimulated and too busy. Anyone too busy? Most, again, not everyone, because I don't know everyone's schedule. Most people who think they're too busy are simply unscheduled, right? You stop planning. You're allowing the whirlwind of life to kick your ass. Take control of your shit. If you want to change, take control. It's not going to happen by accident, right? So I want to acknowledge that. Anyone on this call have an interest? It seems to me, we've got 100 people on the call. It seems to me that everyone that's on this call is hoping to transform their body, right? Transform their body, transform their life, transform their energy, their sex drive, their relationships, all of it, right? Here's a secret that you all know. It's not a secret. It's not going to happen on its own. You have to create a new system. You have to create a new plan. You have to be willing to do something different than you've always done. What does that look like? Right? Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to teach you my high impact habits. What's a high impact habit? A small thing that moves big doors. Small hinge, big door, right? What are the high impact habits that you should all be implementing every single day to make sure that when you come back 90 days from now, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, you're exponentially better and you're healthy? Man, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that. I don't know if you guys follow professional bodybuilding. This weekend's the Mr. Olympia contest, and one of my dear friends, George Peterson, passed away, 37 years old, and I have no idea why. You know, we speculate all we want, but man, we don't want that to happen to any of us, right? I'm not saying we can always control it, but what I want to do is I want to keep death at arm's length. I want to be aware of it's there. So I have a bracelet that I always wear. It's a yak bone bracelet.
And it's, for me, it's a constant daily reminder that death is only an arm's length away, right? It's always at my arm's length away. So I always want to be aware of this. And what are the things I should be doing every day to make sure, first and foremost, that I'm keeping death at arm's length? And that could be, hey, man, I just want to perform really well. I want to be able to recover really well, right? I don't want to be beating myself into the ground and death is closing in around me. Look at that, right? So what are those things we should be doing every day? This is basically the foundational phase, paralleled. What are they? All right, so first one we spoke about, right? You've got to optimize movement. So optimizing movement doesn't just mean doing more, right? It means smart first. So it's interesting. Someone brought up to me recently that, in 2011, when I started my business was the catalyst for change toward intelligent muscle building in the world. Like prior to 2011, nobody was doing this stuff. It's really interesting to see how now it seems like many people are attempting to teach intelligent muscle building or attempting to teach smart before hard, right? Train smart before you train hard. I love it. And I feel incredibly grateful that it's just like taken over the world. It's awesome, but it needs to be done in the correct way. So for your body, what are you capable of right now? And what am I capable of? And what are my weakest links? So always train your weakest link. I always take an approach of training the weakest link first. Okay, so movement is huge. And movement includes training, mobility, cardio, walking. And one thing I'll say to you guys that will help you eliminate your pain in the gym is get hot before you train. Get hot before you train. Doesn't mean you get in the sauna if you want, but find a way to do something that gets you hot. So the number one way you get hot? Well, two things you do. Abdominal training, core training. So you start moving your core, you start moving your spine, your body will actually get significantly hotter. And breath holds. So like doing the slow, controlled breath cadence will crank up your body temperature. So when you guys get in the gym, you feel those creaks, you feel achy, it feels like the governor's on. You want to remove that, you got to get your body temperature up. Body temperature is a good way to get things moving. So movement is one. Two, in the foundational phase, we're going to focus on massively optimization of sleep, right? How many of you guys don't sleep well? Yeah. Do you know you can usually see it on someone when they don't sleep well, right? Like, gosh, they're not doing so great. So how do we focus on sleep? Well, there's a lot of stuff we need to focus on sleep, but the simple things is already tied into the message I said. What do? Get outside for 10 minutes in the morning and look at the sun. Why? If you're watching the sun rise and the sun set, you're actually setting your circadian rhythms. So your circadian rhythms is the internal clock that tells your body when to be awake and when to go to bed. If we constantly live inside, like many of us do, especially getting tons of artificial light from the television, from the screen, our circadian rhythms are completely dysregulated. Our body doesn't know when to be up and when doesn't know when to be awake, when to be asleep. So when we wake up in the morning, we should have the greatest amount of bright light into our eyes, and that's outside only. No amount of internal light does the same job. Get outside. And as you prepare for sleep, you actually want to watch the sunset as well. The sunset actually prepares your body for sleep by releasing melatonin and allowing your body to start preparing itself internally. It starts preparing the internal clock for sleep. And that means not going to watch Netflix afterwards. Important. Okay. So the first, in the foundational phase, we're optimizing movement, we're optimizing sleep, we're optimizing gut health. And gut health is complex. I won't get into that. 4, optimizing stress. Yes. 5, optimizing or decreasing inflammation. So there's your 5 things you focus on in phase 1. If you don't know how to do these things, start learning. I've done podcasts on all of them. Start learning. I can't take the time today to teach all you guys because it's a lot. It's a lot. So say it again: movement, sleep, gut health, stress and arousal control, and inflammation. You have 5 things. So I'll give you a promise. If you focus on those things for 30 to 60 days, and you just focus on those things, no intention of working harder in your workouts at all. Don't work harder. Don't add more stress to the system. Right? Don't add more stress to the system. Just optimize those things. Your body composition will change. Your sense of well-being will change, and your daily energy will change, and your motivation and drive and sex drive will come back. Right? So with most people in my program, we do 30 days of foundational phase.
And we just literally, it's going to obviously be a lot more detailed. This, we just literally detail out every single thing you got to do every day. It's simple. It's not huge amounts of time. It's just consistency. Can you guys commit to 30 days of that? Can you commit to 30 days? Well, so here's the thing, guys. Do you want to wake up in 5 years and 10 years? So however old you are now, I want you to go back to, let's say, your 30-year-old self. When you look at your 30-year-old self, do you go, hell yeah, man, you hooked me up. You set me up by working really hard, by, financially and health, like, man, I'm in pretty good shape, right? Or do you look back at your 20 and 30-year-old self and go, you just drove me into the ground and now I'm fighting an uphill battle and I can't ultimately, I'm hurting. So now reverse that on yourself and go, okay, the 50-year-old or 60-year-old version of yourself, when you're looking back to your 40 or 50-year-old version, right, the 10-year older version's talking to the younger version, are you going to say thank you for the investments that you've made in your future self? So when you're training, it's not just, or when you're investing 5 to 10 minutes a day or 30 days to commit to a foundational program, it's not just the 30 days. You're literally making an investment in your future self. Your future self goes, man, I'm able to live a better quality life now because of the small stuff you're doing today, right? So this is what I want you guys to focus on. This is how we start finding motivation. Where does motivation come from? One place: forward progress, right? Motivation is dopamine. Dopamine is forward progress. We're all hunters. When you pursue something, you feel motivated. If you guys need to eat and there was an animal out there, you'd get off your ass and you go find it. You go kill it because you're motivated. You're pursuing something, motivation goes up. Do you know when you're pursuing something? If you guys ever been in a fight or chasing something, or you're hunting, it doesn't feel like you get tired, does it? Like once you get the thing, you get tired. But your body starts producing what's called neural energy because you're pursuing something. When you're pursuing something, motivation is high. So what do you have to pursue? Whatever the hell you want, right? Start pursuing, and you don't even have a goal. Just start moving forward. Start progressing forward in anything. Goals are very helpful, but it's not even necessary. Just walk every day. Just like, hey, I'm going to move toward this thing. I'm going to do this daily ritual of like every 10 minutes a day of meditation.